The current water crisis is a head-on crash. If you look at most of the projections in the next 15, 20 years, there is a consistency in the projections that we need 40% additional water to satisfy our current business as usual models in terms of food production, energy production, as well as the water we use in municipal and industrial use. So the crisis, we're beyond the crisis. And I would say we're beyond a stage where we could do optimization with a business as usual scenario. The crisis in both the water energy as well as the food energy and all of this nexus interconnectedness is at a critical stage. And that is, I would say, most manifested itself in the dry areas of the world, in the MENA region, the Arab world, North Africa, would be hit the hardest in terms of climate change, future growth in economies, and future population growth. So in summary, we are beyond crisis stage, we're beyond optimization stage, and we are at a stage that we must look at interconnectedness, holistic system that allows us to identify interlinkages between these core resources and develop trade-offs. And I think that's the message, that we must work all together towards addressing a holistic view of resource allocation and resource management, not only for water, but for water, food, and energy.
No.
So the way I see things, there are three different circles, the interconnected circles that in the past have not worked well together. The scientific community has been developing the know-how, the knowledge, the interconnectedness within a Nexus framework. There is a lot of work done. There's a lot of work to be done also in terms of identifying the interlinkages, identifying the trade-offs. The other two circles that are as important, but they're not been in part of the same circle as the academe, is the supply chain circle, which is very important in terms of the food, because they mobilize the food trade, they mobilize a lot of that globally. The third circle is the policy. So the question is, it's about how do you really manage the process, a Nexus process within these three circles, and make sure that policy is embedded or it is connected to academia as well as to the supply chain. I mean, I go back to the earlier point I made. It's both. So there are scientific knowledge that need to be developed, that need to be harvested in terms of identifying the interlinkages between water, energy, food, and defining the trade-offs. That's a scientific process to really capture these, quantify these interlinkages for a specific case study, for a specific scenario, for a specific policy question. But then you have to move from the interlinkages, from the quantification, from the analytics, move into another process, which is the political process. And I would define that political process at two levels. At the supply chain level, that really is in the market and trade, and the other circle of the policy is with the political process to really look into what gaps in the policy we have in the overall governance that need to be taken to make sure that we do have proper resource allocation and proper implementation of these trade-offs and interlinkages. So In some, it's both. And I think it cannot be looked at as only as a scientific process, and it cannot be looked at only as a political process. I think the dialogue, the interlinkages between the two circles and the three circles I mentioned is very crucial in implementing a Nexus platform. And again, the Nexus is not a solution by itself. A Nexus is a stage process, is a multiple iterative process that involves dialogue, that involves knowledge sharing, that involve technology transfer, and all of the surrounding externalities that really lead into proper impact involving the scientific community, the private sector, the civil society, as well as the public sector and policymakers.